Hello, welcome to the Retro Game Club podcast, Season 7, Episode 13, which is very lucky, which is also Episode 202. I am Rob, and joining me is someone with the exact same collecting problem as I do, BovineDevine. Hello.
Hello, Rob. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for joining us for this podcast.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you very much for the invite. Well, like I said, I guess this is going to become more of a not a Collectors Anonymous kind of support group for both of us to deal with our issue here of grabbing too many games and not playing enough of them. So I think I need this probably as much as you needed to. So
nice, yeah.
But again, but thank you again, and I just want to say thanks again for doing this podcast. You know, I'm going through the backlog now. You know, you've got 200 something episodes, which is great for me. I've got something that'll keep me occupied for a long time. So I'm really enjoying what I'm hearing so far. And like I said, I'll be glad, I'll be sure to take notes along the way and, come back at you and jab you with all the bad stuff you've been saying about all the good games I love.
Absolutely. Please do. Yeah. Email us, Discord us, whatever. We'll get it in there.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I'm trying to think what's been going on. Oh yeah. For our listener, two things for our listeners. I am probably going to put up a poll, at least in Discord, and it's actually, Bovine, partially inspired by your Game Club pick and mine this week, which we'll get into later. But do our listeners like us to keep picking easy, accessible games? Like the Marios of the world, stuff like that. Or do they like us to get weird, like with the PC Engine, WonderSwan, FM Towns, maybe just some rare games or some imports, maybe even some hacks. So look out for that poll I'll put up in Discord and maybe a few other places, or just email us your thoughts on that.
That'd be great to see results. I'd love to see where your audience leans in terms of, easier. When you say, and it's funny, when you say easier, I knew exactly what you meant. Easy in terms of like our retro collecting game hobby. When you say easy games, like I always think about the same thing where the common franchises that everyone are always familiar with, like Zelda's, Mario's, Mega Man's, like
the stuff that wasn't Game Power or Game Pro or Nintendo Power,
Yeah, exactly. Versus, the weirder stuff, kind of like you and I are kind of like currently have our eyes set on and our target set on for expanding our retro game collections. We're really delving into the weird stuff and the import scenes. Then it gets a little, that's the kind of stuff that really tickles my fancy in terms of looking for like retro streamers and content out there. So
yeah. Well, have you been playing, or what are you playing right now, by the way?
Oh God, what am I playing? Actually, I just got back. So here in California, they just had this event called California Extreme, which is a yearly like arcade meetup. Not an arcade meetup. It's just they collect like 500 to 600 arcade cabs, and they set it up in this convention center. So it happens around the same time this year. It just happened to be this past weekend. So I just got out of that one this past weekend. It was another great time. It's a really great event. I mean, for me out here, we don't really have any true arcades left anymore. There's some areas around the US that seem to have like really hot spots of arcades, like Galloping Ghost in the middle of Illinois. Pittsburgh, I heard, is a really big scene. Up in Seattle, there seems to be a number of places, but here where I'm at, there's not a lot. So when this event comes around, it's really a great time for me to just go and just hang out at this huge convention, where they've just got all the arcades set up, free play, going through the entire backlog of my childhood of arcade games. It's really an awesome time. And this last weekend when I was there was a couple games. I mean, there's always games that I run into, that I've never seen before at all, which, for arcade games, I feel it's always this amazing backlog of game machines that, I think you and I are around the same age, right? So when we were growing up, going to like Chuck E. Cheese or our local arcades, it's like you saw some very, basic machines that were always at most places. But then you get to this level where you're looking at this huge number of arcade machines that you never would have even seen in your area, never came by the arcades. Like there's just so many. I feel like that collection of arcade games is so vast. It's like it dwarfs kind of like some of these other collections that we're familiar with, like the NES library or the Genesis, like the arcade library. To me, it always seems like this immense, vast, like series of games. So, I was just running around trying to not let ADHD take over, just stay on a game, play some games. But I ran into, so the two games that I was kind of focusing on there, they had this Outrun versus side by side cab, which I always, whenever I find that machine, like I always jump on that just because Outrun, I feel, Outrun 2 is like one of the most amazing arcade racers out there. But there was these, like traditional, I don't know if they're true Lycan. They must be true Lycan games. But have you ever heard of these arcade games called Crossbow and Cayenne?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever heard of those?
Yeah, I know Crossbow. Yeah.
Yeah, so they had two machines, and I didn't know that. I guess they used the same gun itself. Like to me, I always thought they were slightly different, but apparently,
Okay.
so they had two cabs set up. One had crossbow, which wasn't working. Unfortunately, something was wrong with it, like the start button wasn't working. But the Cayenne machine, that one was working, and it had like a multi-ROM board on there. So when you reset the game, you could select from any number of different like games that ran on that hardware. So Chiller was on there, Crossbow on there, Cayenne was on there. So I spent a lot of time just playing through like those simple, light gun shooting games. And I feel like, when you get an arcade game that has a gun attachment to it, because that's something that's kind of still hard to really replicate that same feel at home. Right. So whenever I run into an arcade cab like that, I always tend to jump on that and spend a lot of time. So in the short run, that's what I was doing at the arcade show. Other than that, it's just the games I've been streaming. What have you been spending your time gaming on?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I forgot to mention at the top of the show, we got a notice 2 days ago that the house next to us is being torn down.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it's because of gentrification. It's actually a really nice house, but I guess people need a bigger house. So if you hear any construction for the next 6 months, that's what that is. And I work from home, so I get to hear that. But on the Switch 2, I just finished Breath of the Wild. And if for some reason, and I played it when it came out originally, but if, no one wants any spoilers, like maybe, fast forward a few minutes.
I'm going to tell you right now, unfortunately, I have not played either one, Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom.
Do you mind if I spoil one part?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, by the time I get around to it, I'll probably have forgotten. So
okay, well, so right before the final battle, Zelda says Ganon gave up his reincarnation to take his true malice form. So, which made me start thinking, like, wait a minute. That's what Zelda is about. It's about reincarnating and this battle over and over again. And then Tears of the Kingdom takes place right after Breath of the Wild, but Ganon comes back because he was like, there was a version of him that didn't reincarnate yet in zombie form, and he gets those powers back. So they kind of already planned that, like, hey, we could get one more Ganon out of this, but obviously you kill him. So that means like both the Ganons that existed in this universe are dead now. So I wonder if that means that this will be the last Ganon in the timeline. Like, maybe they'll have other Zeldas in the stupid timeline they created, but this kind of has to be the last one unless there's going to be a new villain. So yeah, that's kind of got me thinking. I kind of glazed over that the first time I played it.
That's weird because I thought canonically, like the storyline of Zelda, like, and I've played obviously Zelda games here and there. I haven't gone through the entire game, but it was always my understanding that there wasn't like a consistent running storyline throughout. Are they trying to like somehow tie that all up in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? Because these are like the first two games that have literally been set together, storyline in the same universe, right? For I don't know when the last time they did that in the series, but is that what they're doing with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom?
Yeah, according to the Hyrule Historia, these two are the last in the actual timeline. There's 3 timelines that break apart, I think, at, between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and then all 3 timelines come back in Breath of the Wild. I can't believe I'm talking about this. It's so stupid. But, like,
this is news to me.
In the Historia, Adventure of Link, Zelda 2 is the prequel to Zelda. I think that's, or maybe.
Right, yeah, it happens before somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
And then both of those are actually kind of late in the timeline. But yeah, kind of interesting. I don't know.
So have you played through Tears of the Kingdom then already as well?
Oh, yeah. Right when that came out. I'm not going to replay it on Switch 2. Breath of the Wild's a bit better, and there's other games I want to play, which I'll get into in our game club, probably.
No, it's cool. Yeah, and how are you been enjoying your Switch 2 outside of that? I mean, in terms of like the Zelda games.
So, and by the way, listeners, we did not plan BovineDevine to ask me that question, but it was a great segue for me to rant about my morning. So I pre-ordered Donkey Kong Bonanza.
All right.
And it came out today. which is tomorrow in Australia. It's today here, but for you, that's tomorrow in terms of international datelines. But it came out a few days ago, and I'd been busy, so I hadn't been able to go pick it up from HB Hi-Fi. And I figured while I was there, I was going to check out the Switch 2 game selection and see what was on the shelf and maybe take home another game with me.
A little sparse, don't you think?
Well, there's a few games, not a bad lineup, but other than the Nintendo first-party games, which is, I think, there's a Mario Party, there's this Donkey Kong game, and then the 2 Zelda games. Mm-hmm. Other than that, and Mario Kart World.
Yeah, no one really counting that one. Everyone just assumes you have a Switch 2, you got Mario Kart World.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. 100% of the other games on the shelf there were either a box with a download code or the card key or keyed card, whatever it is. So I walked. They lost my money. I'm not going to spend money on that. I'm not going to collect those. I bought one when it came out. I just got Street Fighter 6 because I didn't own it, and I wanted to own one key card or card key, whatever they're called, just so I could have one.
Just to see, right?
But I'm not going to buy any more. I'd rather just, if I'm going to do digital, I'll probably just do my Steam Deck or something.
Yeah, it's so funny, right? Because the only other game I did buy was Street Fighter 6, and partly for the same reason you had. I just wanted to go through this keycard process to see how either bad/good, how well they handled it. And I gotta say, so far, it's pretty horribly implemented.
I didn't even open mine yet because I'm going through
the minute you do, and then you have to do the DLC, right? Because I guess the initial download is just the game, which makes zero sense to me because they waited, right? They actually held off on Season 2's release plan to coincide with the release of Street Fighter 6 for the Switch 2, right? Like they held off on the Elena DLC. So, you would think that if they were going to release it with Season 1 and 2 already part of the game, it would just be like one big download that has all. But no, there's some base game download, and then you need to do DLC separately. I could not believe how ridiculous it was. And then on top of that, I finally got introduced to this whole system of their virtual card borrowing DLC. Well, I can't remember what they called it. There's like some component to
I think it's virtual card, yeah.
Yes, the DRM management. That was the first time I had to do it. I almost wanted to return everything right there. I was fighting. I was fighting it for like 20 minutes trying to figure out, like, what do I do? I need to get my original Switch somehow. It has to be physically. Like, I gave my first Switch away to my cousin who lives in Singapore. So I'm like, I'm nowhere near that thing. How am I going to transfer this deal? It was so frustrating. And I had to like go through multiple Reddit forums and like I had to look like 10 different places to get the answer. So apparently there was some like weird clandestine back end like series of hoops you had to jump through on the site to be able to manage like your consoles. I never had seen it before in my life, right? Like I've never had to manage the DRM stuff. So having to go through that, it was just like, this is I can't do this. I'm not buying any more game cards if this is the process, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It just adds an extra step, and in many years, who knows if the download will actually work.
Oh, I can see how none of this will work. The minute they decide, I mean, of course, it's always up to the publishers at this point. We're at the whim of whatever they want to do now, digital rights management wise. If they decide to take it away, none of that stuff is going to work. Like the key card's going to be worthless. Like I have no idea. It's a dark future, I think, and we're looking down the road for.
I agree. But I don't know how many of our listeners are aware of you, BovineDevine. So let me just say you are a streamer, you are a retro enthusiast, a collector, a podcaster. So I guess you are a creator, a digital creator. But I was wondering if you could, this is full disclosure, my favorite thing you do. I love your streams, but I think the most important thing you do is retro community. I was wondering if you could tell our listeners what retro community is.
Yeah, sure. No problem. And first, thanks a lot for being a loyal viewer, sir. Like, it's great to have people who are, I love, the whole reason why I create, and I don't see myself as a creator in any way, shape, or form. It's just like the whole idea of wanting to share, like, this hobby with like-minded individuals out there. Like, that was my only goal. And, I thought streaming would just been a nice way to just start up a stream and get a few people coming in to chat about retro games. And I love how it's, grown and become this bigger thing in my mind, where I know people from all over the world now. Some I've met, some I haven't met, some that I've only known virtually. And just to get that sense of community was really just something that I never knew could get to this point. It's like there's people that come into my stream, there's people I talk on Discord with, I hang out in their streams, and these are just people that are closer to me now in my life just because of this, similar hobby that we all share. And it's an amazing thing, right? And I can't tell you how awesome it is like and I've met a lot of these people, in real life too. We've gone to game conventions. There was one of my mods, Dead Man's Lunchbox, was just there at this Cal Extreme event this past weekend. So we were hanging out playing games there. And it's so awesome to just be able to meet it with people and immediately not have to go through that initial awkward getting to know people for the first, 6 months to a year. It's like you already kind of know where you're at because of this hobby that we share. It's like there's so much similar like-mindedness that just flows between everyone, right? It's like such an easy thing. So, when I started streaming, one of the things that I saw, every time you went to a streamer's page, they would be talking about a Discord. And I had no idea what Discord was. I mean, I had a sort of an idea. To me, it was just like, oh, yet another social app that I'm not going to care about, right? Like some social media stuff that I don't, because I'm not really a big social media guy. Like I know neither were you either for the longest time, right? Like it's kind of something that's forced upon us.
Yeah.
But when I saw that, a lot of these streamers, they would have their own personal Discords, and it's kind of like, you just go hang out with them when they're not streaming. It's like a little community area that you can hang out with.
But there's so many of them.
Yes, and that was the thing that kind of was a little discouraging at first, especially for someone who was new to Discord. I'm like, okay, I got to join like one Discord per every person I watch streaming. Like that's going to be, like for me, it's like out of sight, out of mind. Once you get too many items on a column, anything below that the view where you have to scroll, you just never look at it, right? It's only whatever's at the top. So when I was going through that, I thought, well, I said, one, I'm way too lazy to manage any type of community myself personally. I just, I'm lazy, I have no time. So I said, why don't we just put together, a number of different, and by this time I had, was hanging out with a bunch of random streamers here and there. And we were all small streamers. I mean, we're all, there was a lot of small and people that were in streams that were, had less than 50, less than 20 people that in their streams. But we always felt like those kind of retro streams were the most cozy because you literally were recreating that feel we wanted, which was people hanging out in a room talking about video games. Maybe one person would be playing a game, the other ones would be talking about other games, or you would be playing a couple co-op games and everyone would be watching. It was really, something that I had a lot of growing up as a kid. We would go over to my friend's house, and then 4 of them maybe would be playing GoldenEye, but then there would be 6 of us sitting around the couches watching them play. But we would all be talking about games. So, all of these streams, all of these smaller streams, I feel really kind of recapture that real cozy, intimate feeling about talking about retro games and sharing these memories, which is really what this whole thing is about for me. It's like, I want to be able to, it's one about, reliving, memories. Of course, we can sit and talk about Mario and Zelda, but to me, it was just like, I'm reliving that new experience with new games. But it's that old feel. Like we're going to sit around, I'm going to stream a PC Engine, import fighting game, and then a bunch of people will jump into stream and they'll talk about it, right? So it's like, that's not something I ever did before. I never played this game before, but it's the exact same experience we had. So like this idea of the retro community Discord, which is essentially, it's a Discord, like I said, that all these small streamers, we just got together and said, hey, for anyone, raise your hand. If you're lazy, you don't want to manage your own Discord, let's just all combine our lazy forces into one, one group of a Discord, so that, if someone watched ZBR stream or someone watched Gradinaria stream, these are people that were small streamers, they could all just come to one single place to kind of hang out with multiple streamers at once. And that's kind of like the thing that, I think it feels like it's it's very low effort, but, say, hey, come and go if you please, come hang out if you want to chat, if you were familiar with these streamers, you want to hang out and talk to us, you can go ahead and do it in this Discord. And I think it was something that, over time, it goes up and down. And this is purely based on the fact that everyone is too lazy to kind of take the reins and turn it into something bigger. I really love the fact that your podcast, it always amazes me when I remember you talking about it. And then I remember saying, okay, this sounds like a cool podcast and a good idea. And you had wanted to join the Discord. And I thought, oh yeah, I never responded to you. I said, yeah, you should have just joined it because it's the perfect kind of template that I
need to start putting links in there. Yeah.
No, yeah, trust me. Your Discord probably is way better than ours at this point. I might join yours and just abandon mine at this point. But the idea of just combining, because like you said, right, it was just so hard to be able to jump around from different Discords to Discords at this point. And to me, I still feel it's a little cumbersome, right? Because like if there was some easy way people could like join Discord forces, I think that'd be a lot. I think that would be beneficial for a lot of smaller communities. And then within our retro, I feel there are a number of smaller communities that could benefit from it. But hey, it's up to them, obviously, and then no one's forcing anyone to do anything. But that was the idea.
Well, and I've learned about a lot of streamers in that, because I'll see the going live announcement when they're about to stream, and they'll usually say what they're about to stream. I'm like, oh, that interests me, and I've never heard of you, and so I'll click on it and check them out. And I've found a lot of great streamers that way.
Yeah, and since then, there's been a number of other kind of like these larger communities of combined retro streamers that are kind of doing the same thing. And I kind of wish I'd spent a little time and worked a little bit harder to kind of foster and grow that. But at this point, I'm totally comfortable with the fact that everyone that hangs out in our Discord are just people that kind of we know in this like local community, or local in the sense of this local streamer community. But the idea of it is just it's very simple. And initially we were really doing like some events. Like we had something called Cart Club that was kind of like a book readers club of games, where it's similar to what you guys do week to week, where we basically had people, we voted on a game, everyone play it for a month, and then everyone come together in a Discord chat and then just talk about it round robin table style, like an old book club. And it was a really cool idea. And we had, 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And then we always talk about wanting to do more, but man, I'm sure you are as aware of this as I am, but even getting 2 people's schedules together online to do something, it just feels like it's pulling teeth a lot of times.
Especially with time zones.
Yeah, time zones, like jobs, people are adults, we have responsibilities. Some people have kids for some reason. I mean, you know what I mean? And then it's like, it amazes me that the events can ever be pulled off at all. Even like now, like we use it to put together community, like gaming nights, just coming online to play some Insignia, right? Which is the revived Xbox Live service. Like we've been having tons of fun with that. And, get like 6 to 8 people just to show up on a Friday to play some original Outrun 2 in the Xbox Live. Like I feel like all these little things that happen as a result of that very low effort retro community Discord has been totally worth it for me in my mind.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic community. It's a lot of people. It is a lot of people. It's a lot of streamers and people who don't stream who, are just, viewing and discussing. And yeah, it's fantastic. And I really appreciate you running it, and you keep it open. So I'm assuming anyone that listens to this podcast, they're free to join and interact.
Yep, absolutely. Well, at some point, I guess we'll send the link somewhere. You'll definitely post it. Anyone who's welcome to come in and talk up some retro games, or if you want to talk about hot dog water, that works too. You'll find out all about that when you come in. It's just one of those things. It's like, I think for everything that organically, grows, if you foster community, some weird things will pop up here and there, and then you kind of just get used to it, or you just ignore it. You're free to ignore the
go down those tangents. Yeah.
It's weird. Right? I mean, there was like one room we opened one room that was meant to talk about like real life sports, like anyone who was like a real life sports fan. Because every now and then there are some video game players that happen to like sports, go figure. So we had one area that was dedicated to talk about sports. And then I realized it was just a rivalry hate chat at that point. And then everyone just started talking about wrestling. And I haven't been in that room for about 4 years now. So whatever they're talking about in there, it's probably related to wrestling. And I was an old school wrestling fan, but just the new stuff they're talking about, I have no idea what they're referring to.
You'll find that, listening to this podcast, I liked wrestling probably up till, like WrestleMania 5, whatever Zeus was the bad guy in. And then I just kind of forgot about it. And I didn't realize that wrestling was still a thing. And being in retro, it's crazy how many people love wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I feel, in that era, growing up as a Nintendo, NES fan in the late 80s, right? Like wrestling in the what do they call it? The silver era?
I have no idea.
That era, right? Whatever that era is in the 80s, right? Which had the old school WWF logo. And it's so funny. You just mentioned Zeus showing up at WrestleMania. I forgot that there was that cross promotion with that No Holds Barred movie, right? Isn't that the only reson he was in that? Because he wasn't a wrestler. Idea. He was an actor that they just invited over into WrestleMania to partake in some strange crossover event. It's pulling up all these memories when you mention that. That was hilarious. But yeah, it's like that era. I think you get so many people who love the same things. Kids that love wrestling, WWF wrestling, NES games, muscle figures, Transformers, He-Man. Like it's so there's so many of these common things that everyone just shares in terms of their experiences growing up. So it's so easy to just connect with these people because you can just mention something like that, and you'll get a bunch of people that suddenly perk up in chat. Maybe they've been lurking for like 4 years of your stream, never said a word. You suddenly mention, mask toys or something like that.
Yeah.
And then everyone's, then they suddenly they raise their hand. They're like, oh, I had mask toys. And then you talk to them about mask toys. Then you realize, okay, that's the viewer who's the mask toy guy who never spoke up until just now. So
then there's always like the Laserdisc people and stuff like that.
Oh God, I know, right?
I love it.
I mean, I think the VHS tape community people, I tend to stay away from those. You think about hobbies that are more hardcore than retro gaming. Like I feel like VHS movie collecting is one of those weird ones where I can't even wrap my head around like how strange and how
I wish I could.
Is.
You know how much retro games, how much space they take up. I can't collect anything else. I have to, and I'm broke too. These games are expensive.
Yes, games definitely are expensive. But then you look at things like Laserdisc, like custom, like special edition Laserdisc, or arcade boards. Like I don't know how these people have this amount of room left, right? It's like you collect games and you collect Laserdisc and you collect like I don't know My Little Pony figures from 1970. Like how do you fit all this stuff?
Or cards, Pokemon cards, or whatever else Door talks about.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are.
It's funny, right? Because I feel like trading card games was something beyond at least my era and age. Like I feel like when I grew up, I don't remember trading cards being like I grew up and I was a later teenager when Pokemon became a big thing.
Yeah.
So if trading cards started to take off around I feel like I missed that whole era as a kid, or it wasn't there yet in its full form like it is now. Like right now, it's just an insane hobby that, again, right, like we talked about, it's not anything I can grasp my head around.
Yep.
It's just insane.
Yeah, it's too late for me on that. But I mean, speaking of collecting, so a lot of your Twitch streams have to do with collecting. You go to Hong Kong and Singapore and probably other countries I'm forgetting. You buy locally, and you taught me about something that's not available in Australia, so I forgot the name now. What's the live one? The live auction.
Oh, Whatnot.
Whatnot.
Right?
Yeah, you taught me about that and a few other things. So what's your... And right now in stream, you're also cataloging your stream, and you also show videos of your travels and purchasing, your finds and stuff like that in retro. So what is first of all, your history with retro, which, when it was new, not retro, and then also getting into collecting. How did you get into collecting, and like, what's your... I know there's a lot of questions at once. What's your... kind of method to collecting, like what are you interested in, maybe for a complete set or not, or, any way you could answer any of those.
Oh, yeah. No, I feel like I'm on the other side of so I had this gimmick in my stream for the longest time where initially when I started streaming, anyone who took the time to follow, because you'd get like 1 or 2 follows like every couple of streams because it was just, you were a small streamer, right? Or I'm still a small streamer, obviously. But when they come in, I wanted to really get to know my viewers. So I'd go through this long spiel where I'd give this welcome speech and ask them pretty much everything you asked me. Mm-hmm. So now I feel like the microscope's been flipped around and it's on me and I need to answer it. Yeah. So thanks a lot for putting me in that spot.
Nice.
No, but seriously, like growing up, obviously, I'm in my later 40s now, so I grew up right in the era of video games when it became a thing, like starting with the Atari 2600, going through the Nintendo NES, 16-bit era, 32-bit era. So I feel like my entire life has really been, the major hobby of my life has always been video games for as long as I can remember. And, growing up, as you go through and, you buy your systems, you beg your parents for money, you get birthday games. So, you get a console here and there. I tried to get all the consoles as they came out. I couldn't obviously get all of them. I tried to get as many as I could, though, and then put together a decent, maybe 20 to 30 games per console that I get my hands on as a kid. And it was, it was my beloved game collection as I was growing up as a kid. But, you reach a certain point, when you think you're an edgy teenager or you're done with video games, or you build a gaming PC and all of a sudden all the video games, they seem like they're backwards. So, there was a period of time where I remember every time I would there was a new console, I would have to like trade in all of my previous console's games to be able to get credit to get the new console. Like I remember trading in at the point when I was moving on from Super Nintendo and Genesis over to PlayStation 1 and the Saturn, right? Like I remember I traded in 70 of my Genesis box games. These were my
70?
childhood collection games. 70. I had 70
Oh my God.
Genesis games. And there was like great time. Like Musha was in there. I had Phantasy Star, all the Phantasy Star, all the RPGs were on there. Like just an amazing collection that I had curated as a kid. Cause at that time, I was probably like, let me see, Genesis 92. Yeah, I was a teenager at that point, like, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it was to the point where I was working. I had a little bit of money. So I'll do a lot of these game purchases on my own. I'd go out for the first time, buy my own games. So I'd have to selectively pick which games I could get. I didn't have to beg my parents for money anymore, but it was still spending your own hard-earned money on the games you had. So those 70 games, like that was one of the things that really, like every time I think back about my game collecting as a kid, not even game collecting, just game playing as a kid, those 70-ish Genesis games that I had, and I traded in to get, now granted, I traded them all in and I got enough credit to get a PlayStation 1 on launch day, right? So back then, in my mind, I was like, this is amazing. Like, I don't care about those 16-bit Genesis games. I played through all of them.
I'll never want them again.
Yeah, I'll never want them again. Like PlayStation 1, it's new, it's 3D, everything's going to be full motion video, games are going to be talking to you, you're going to be watching movies half the time. Like, you get caught up into it. And and while it was great at that time, it was just like the pain of thinking about what I gave up on the way there. But the funny thing is that I always kept the hardware and the consoles. For whatever reason, I didn't trade them. And I think the reason was not anything like pure of heart. They literally just weren't giving you much credit for the system. So I said, I might as well just keep the systems themselves, right? So, fast forward to as an adult now, and I think I want to say it was around between 2012-ish, maybe 2010, 2012. Because, after you, as a kid and growing up as an adult, and then you're playing, PlayStation, I guess 2 and 3 at that time, like there was one point that I really found was the focal point from kind of like my reigniting my love for retro games. So what happened was that I was hanging out with my cousin, and my cousin is about 10 years younger than me. And I would have been around 30-ish, 35, like mid, let's see, 44. Yeah, I was like late 30s at this point. So late 30s, I was hanging out with my cousin, right? She was 10 years younger than me, and she started dating this guy. And, they're both 10 years younger than me. So he's like 28-ish or something like that. Yeah. So I remember they came over one time and he busted out his backpack and he's like, hey, look what I got. He's all, your cousin told me you used to play these games. Like, you take a look at this, right? And he busted out an old school, toaster Nintendo. And he threw down like 5 or 6 games. It was like Castlevania 2, Mega Man 3, one of the Super Mario. I can't remember what it was, but it was just like this, like, cornucopia of legacy legendary retro games for the NES. And it was just so cool because this was this younger guy who was getting excited about retro games and retro game, not collecting, but he just wanted to play like the original games. And I thought to myself, that's really odd. I asked him, I said, hey, why don't you just, download them on your phone or, put them on your computer, emulate them? I'm sure, you have ways. So he's like, yeah, but this is like the original hardware. And he was talking about wanting to plug it into like an old CRT and play them. And it was that moment I realized, I'm like, wow, this kid, right? He's growing up trying to rekindle memories and love for retro games that he didn't grow up with. Like, this is stuff that he's interested in now. And it was at that point where I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to start recollecting. At this point, I'm going to see what the current state of my retro game collection is. I'm going to pull everything out of the garage wherever it was sitting collecting dust. I'm going to take inventory, see what I've got, and just kind of build from there. And it really was. I got to thank him. One of these days, unfortunately, that relationship did not last with my cousin and him. He was a really cool guy. But one of these days, I'm going to have to go back and either thank or harass him for getting me back into retro game.
Yeah, I don't know about thank, because you'd be a lot richer now if...
Yeah, I might send him a bill, actually.
Yeah.
Just to, get some of that cost over to him. But really, at that point, I just thought, I'm going to start and just collect. So I pulled out, I remember and it was curious. It's funny because I actually remember this point in time because I posted it on Reddit. I took all my consoles that I had as a kid, and there was like, stragglers of games here and there. Like when I say I sold the games to get the new consoles, like at whatever point I sold them, maybe there were some games that were hanging in a closet somewhere or they were sitting around that I didn't trade in. Or the funny thing is that GameStop, or, what used to be GameStop, it was like Electronics Boutique, whoever I traded them in, they would never take import games. And I had a smattering of import games because my dad, he would take business trips to China and Hong Kong all the time. And he would always come back with some import games, which was really, really like a treat for me as a kid growing up. So I had a lot of my import games. So So, and I remember I posted on Reddit, I said, hey, look, here's my retro games and I'm going to start, recollecting retro games. And it was a picture, like really badly shot, poorly lit picture of like my messed up consoles. Like my Super Famicom was modded, but it was modded as a kid where I basically ripped the top off and kind of just like hacked away at the sides to get the cartridge slot expanded so I could fit Super Nintendo games. So I was sitting in pieces and there was like a row of like Super Nintendo games, some Genesis games. And it was just from that point on, right? It was just taking off. Sky's the limit. It was just, let's go ahead and grab all the games that I wanted as a kid, the ones I missed out on, like anything I missed, I mean, a lot of the collecting kind of focused on grabbing all the games I used to have. That was like part of the goal. But the second goal was also, hey, let's finally go and get all the games that you wanted as a kid. When you were a kid, when I was a kid sitting around flipping through game magazines, I saw ads for this game and that game. And, I kind of committed in the memory, but I never had enough money or funds or permission from the parents to be able to buy, hundreds and hundreds of games.
And also that's when all of us buy our first Neo Geo.
That is definitely one of the first systems that was on. Actually, the funny thing is the number one system that was on my target, like when I decided to recollect retro games back around 2013, 2014, was in fact the TurboGrafx 16 / PC Engine. Oh, okay. Right? Because that was one I did not have.
Yeah, that's what I grew up with.
And you grew up with it, which is crazy, right? Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about this and you probably have told this story. I need to go through the backlog and get the full story. But was the TurboGrafx 16 just your choice among the 16-bit, that era of systems? Like it's always like the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, and TurboGrafx 16. Like I had the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, but I didn't have money. I couldn't convince my parents to get a third system, which would have been the TurboGrafx 16. I always looked at it from afar, lovingly, but
I had the original NES, and then I just thought the TurboGrafx looked cool, and then so I convinced my parents to get it for me for Christmas while I was already mowing lawns and doing other odd jobs to save money for the CD add-on and a bunch of games. So that's how I got into that, and then not right after that, but like whenever the Link to the Past SNES came out, I got that pretty cheap. My mom worked at KB Toys. I think my friend lent me his Genesis and then never asked for it back. Something I got a Genesis really cheap somehow back then, but yeah, that's
very nice.
That's how
I have that one.
Is that the one I still have? I forget. Yeah, maybe I should send it back to him. But yeah, sorry, tangent there. So what's your collecting now? Like because right now in your stream, you're not only cataloging your collection and showing how you bought a lot of the items with your videos, but you're playing some really random games and systems.
Yeah, so I mean, when I started recollecting, right, and I loved the entire aspect. I never even understood the definition of a collector. Honestly, that was something that didn't cross my mind until I was like a couple years into streaming, and everyone kept calling me, "Oh, aren't you a collector? You're a collector." Then I'm like, "What are you talking about? All I'm doing is buying retro games that I want to play." Mm-hmm. In my mind, that's what it felt like, because initially I was literally just buying the games however way I could get them to be played. Whether it was like, and I ended up buying lots of loose games, mm-hmm. right? Because I didn't care. Like for me as a kid, I always felt like, just give me the game and then give me the manual, because the manual is obviously such an integral part to me as a kid growing up. Like I wanted to be able to read about the information about the game when I wasn't playing it, and also to help you along. Like the box was never that important to me initially when I started collecting, and it was just about grabbing volume, like grabbing so many games, because it was just a snowball effect where I started collecting systems that I never had before. So then I had to look into the library of those games, and then I had to look in the games that I missed, and then like the second and third and fourth and fifth tier games of the NES that I never saw, the late release stuff that I completely missed out because I'd been on the Genesis at that point, right? Like there's all these late releases that I'm like, I never even saw as a kid growing up, because your attention was on the next console, because they would like simultaneously support the old console, right, as they introduced the new and kind of like let it die out slowly. And there's these entire pockets of time that you missed out on. So for me, it didn't even occur to me that part of it was like a really cool aspect of it. Like, wow, as a collector, this is literally what I'm doing. I'm building this huge collection of games. In my mind, it was always like, I'm just buying games and I'm going to play them all eventually. It's like, this idea that you want to play every single video game that you ever wanted to play. Really, really lofty goal. But the reality of it was that I was having so much fun doing the buying and like maximizing purchases of games. Right? Like the deal thing was such a big thing for me when I first started. Like I love the idea that, oh, I could go buy, these 10 NES games individually and price them all out and probably get them for X price. But if you wait around for a lot that shows up on eBay, it's like, oh, it has, 10 of the games that I wanted, but there's also like 14 other games that I may or may not want. And then combine, you separate, you divide the price that you're paying, and then you're getting like each game for like $3. That became intoxicating to me. Like buying lots on eBay was a real big issue that I had. Right? it was just like I was buying so many doubles and triples that way, right? Because it was like, oh well, I already have it, but I can get it for even cheaper now, and then I can, like, this idea of just like mass collecting games was kind of crazy to me, and it's evolved over time where I still love buying lots and getting deals, but after a certain period of time, if you collect games long enough in this hobby, lots they're not much of value anymore because you have all those games already, right? Like you're buying a lot of 10 games for one game, so you're paying for 9 extra. Even if they're a deal, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So it has evolved over time. So, but initially, like that whole thing, and I would say the majority of my purchases of my collecting have been primarily online through eBay. But initially, there was still the value of going to like a flea market or going to like a garage sale. And the funny thing was I never looked, I wasn't like a big YouTube fan like during this part of my collecting. And I should have been, because there was a lot of great content out there, like people doing Flea Market Madness, like Pat's Country's Flea Market Madness, Pete Door's Pickups, all these series. I never actually watched them when I was becoming a retro game. I became fans afterward, right?
Yeah, same thing with me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to look back and see like, oh, look at all these amazing deals and information that these people had. But I was literally just kind of going wherever I could to acquire games. If it was on eBay, great. That's like the primary way. But then going out and actually like hitting up personal ads, Craigslist, retro game stores. Like, every area you have your own, smattering of local retro game stores that are selling games. And I had a couple like really good places that have come and gone over the years. But I've grabbed some amazing stuff. And over time, I did finally come to a realization that, okay, I'm a collector. This is what I do now, right? But I still have my range of rules pretty loose. Like these days, obviously, I'm trying not to collect too many loose card games. Like I would love to, get them with instructions and CIB them and get them in, good shape. And then, I'm trying not to collect any more loose CD lots. Like that's like the bane of my existence now, knowing like I look back at how many loose CD lots, like what was I thinking? And it's like at the very least, I should have got the jewel case and the manual. So yeah, like over time, it's just become a thing where, you're just looking for ways to share the hobby with other people. And I feel like sharing those stories of either showing footage of places I've gone to look for retro games. Like that's one of the highlights that I love is going when I want to go visit family in other countries. Like going to Singapore was an amazing experience because in the entire country, they literally have like one big retro game store. And
really?
It's this guy who's basically has spent 40 years of his life amassing this huge collection of retro video games. And he decided to open a store in Singapore, right? Like one of the most expensive countries in the world. So along with the expensive cost of living or the expensive prices for these games. But the first time I walked into that store, one, I didn't expect to run into any retro games in Singapore because I didn't, I've noticed that in some countries, if they grew up not having video games like all over the place or primarily marketed in their area, right? Like there was no retro games fans now that, look back at the nostalgia of what they want. But this guy, right, and he's even like an expat. I think he actually emigrated there from another country that did have video games. So he kind of brought his whole collection with him, decided to open a retro game store. But, just going through, and even though I'm not finding like massive deals there, I'm not finding a bunch of things that I can buy that because the prices are too high. It's just the experience of running into someone like that who has decided to open this huge video game store, has an amazing collection of retro games. The stuff I'll never buy because it's too expensive. But just, those shared experiences that it'd be hard to find and it will be hard to look up. Like I really love that part. That part of it I feel is becoming more like kind of like a not like a traveling vlog documentary style thing, but just kind of like hitting up these little retro spots around the world. Like this last time I was in China, that was the most amazing thing to me. I was in this city called Guangzhou in last December. And when I was in China, I know that in China, right, because video games were banned, they were outlawed. So you shouldn't really have any type of community that has a fondness for retro games. And that's generally what I've seen. Every time I've gone to China, no retro games anywhere. Like you will never see us there. Like you may see some pirated stuff that they had in their country at that time, but very rarely you'll run into any stores like that. And this is a country with 1.4 billion people or whatever it is. So when I went to the city in Guangzhou, it's like I was walking around and one of my family members was telling me, hey, there's a place here that may sell retro games. Oh, that's interesting. Let's go take a look. And I was thinking to myself, maybe it's just some little tiny store that's got some stuff behind glass, maybe 10, 15 games, 20, whatever it is. I thought it was going to be a small thing. So I go there. And again, it's the same situation. It was this guy who's just, he became rich, through whatever means of whatever business he was doing in China. And he had been collecting retro games for the same thing, 30, 40 years. And he had decided to put up a museum highlighting and showcasing all of the retro game consoles that he's collected. And he's not going to even sell it. He's literally just putting them in a museum to show people all these amazing, pristine condition CIB consoles all set up in a museum. And on one hand, I was disappointed because it's not a store. I can't buy anything from this guy. And I would have wanted to buy about 10 of those consoles from him right off the bat. And the idea that he's just going to have this museum of retro game consoles in the middle of the city in China was a crazy thing to me. I'm like, that is one of the coolest things ever. Yeah. Even though for me, it wasn't anything I could take advantage of, but the fact that was there and there was this fan who was just felt this strongly about sharing retro games, that whole idea of just sharing stories is kind of the more important thing to me on every stream now. Like you said, right? These days I've done such a poor job of managing my retro game collection because it really did get out of hand. I was just buying way too many games. It spiraled into the thousands. I was keeping track of my games up until about 3,000. And that was in 2016 or 17. And I just stopped for whatever reason. I think I was moving at that time, had to buy a new house. So I just lost track. Now I never stopped buying games, of course, because we're sick like that.
Yeah.
And it just started snowballing. So now I've decided to put my foot in the ground and say, okay, I'm going to spend a lot of streams just really cataloging every single game that I've purchased. And once I'm done with that process, then I will allow myself to be a sick buyer again / collector.
But so you're also a podcaster, right?
Yes. So that was the other funny thing. So at some point in the middle of my, once I was a couple years into collecting, this was maybe, what would it have been? From 2012. Yeah, it was maybe 4 or 5 years into my my jumping back into retro game collecting. So at some point, I started paying attention to a little bit more YouTube content, some streamers. I found out about Twitch, and it was awesome that there were people streaming games on Twitch. So, and it was just a random search one day where I ran into this guy who was playing Phantasy Star 2, which is one of my favorite games of all time on the Genesis. One of my top RPGs ever. That RPG experience to me, because I'm the kind of guy that's not really a swords and sorcery, dragons kind of fantasy RPG person. Give me that contemporary futuristic sci-fi thing that Phantasy Star going, it just sells me big time. So ran into this guy playing Phantasy Star 2, and his name is Pete Dorr. And I'm like, that name sounds so familiar. It's I know I've heard of them before. But one of the best things was that as I was sitting in his stream, I was just kind of taking in the experience of what he wanted to do as a streamer. Mm-hmm. And, if you guys know Pete Dorr, he just likes to stream weird stuff. Games that we didn't all necessarily grow up with. Like we were talking about earlier, he doesn't stream Marios and Zeldas and Mega Mans and Castlevanias. I mean, he will stream it, but the majority of his stream was kind of diving into the unknown, just the unsung games, the stuff that fell through all of our fingers as retro game fans growing up, you and I. If we were looking at video games or reading the reviews of top games, those are the ones we'd gravitate to. We wouldn't dumpster dive into the low-rated 3s and 2s of the world in the pages of EGM. But here was this guy Pete, and he was intent on streaming those games. And it's not like he would stream them to mock them. He would stream them to find the value in the game. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, that is awesome. It's look, every video game that's made out there, no matter what the quality is, good or bad, there was a team of people who said, hey, let's make a video game. Let's make a fun game that people can enjoy and can play. No one sets out to make a bad game. I mean, well, question is, you can maybe think of some games where you could tell it was a cash grab, right? But in general, you and I, retro game fans growing up, and even to your point, if you're you end up becoming a coder, developer, someone who creates games. I'm sure Hugh could probably attest to this, but you want to, one of the ultimate things to do as you grow up is to create your own game, right? And make it a fun experience that you want other people to share in. So the fact that every game out there is a game that was made by someone who cared, or at least started to care. Maybe they got jaded in the middle and you end up with a bad product. But and I thought that was the coolest thing. So for me, my goal, and I steal all of Pete's great ideas. I was like, I want to do the same thing. You know, I want to stream games that I don't see all the time on stream. Because at this point, I'd been watching a number of Twitch streams, and it was cool to run into people playing old retro games, but they were playing the same ones. It was like people playing, you know, speed running Zelda or playing Super Mario Bros. And it's cool, right? But I'm like, I already know those games. I want to see games that I've never played before, and maybe even learn about them or see if I want to buy them. Like, I was using everyone as a free buyer's guide is really what it came down to. But that's where it ended up, right? So I started hanging out with Pete more. I was hanging out in his streams and got to know him a little bit. You know, got to talking to him, and I remember, you know, like he was telling me, he's like, yeah, you should stream too if you got the games. Like he was really like, this whole thing about playing on the real hardware was a real thing back then, because a lot of people, it was harder to get like the old systems up and running and then set up for streaming. It was just a pain in the butt. As anyone who's
we're spoiled now.
Yeah, these days it's, you know, everything's HDMI, plug it in your capture card, everything's crisp, clean, and perfect, ready to go, right? But back then, I think it was quite the feat to be able to get something like, I don't know, on the Super Nintendo running the Game Boy to come through on a Twitch stream through an S-video connection. Like that was like the cream of the crop back then, right? To be able to see someone playing a Game Boy game on the Super Game Boy, on a Super Nintendo, on a real system. Like I thought that was the coolest thing to me. Like I want to do the same thing. So it was like a combination of wanting to play the original hardware and then stream it with people like-minded playing weird games that they may never heard of. So that was just the thing that kind of, you know, got me and Pete to talking. And so, you know, we got closer as friends. And then of course he's like one of the most amazing retro game collectors out there that I know of. Like his collection, you know, we talk about this collection, our collection, Michael, you know, the cool games we have. It's like nothing compared to, you know, what I saw with Pia. And then later on, I learned there's even crazier collectors out there. You know, you just run into them more and more. You realize, wow, this person has an impressive game collection that's full of weird games. Oh no, this person is like 10 times weirder, right? It's like, it's just cool to keep going up the ladder and seeing that. But, you know, from there, you know, he invited me to do a podcast, you know, because he thought it would be a good combination mix. And you know, at this point, I didn't even realize that Pete, he had a great YouTube channel. He had this amazing podcast called the All Gen Gamers podcast. And I went through that entire back catalog when I started this new job. It got me through like the really rough times, you know, where you're like staying late, got your head down, and you just want to go through it. And it was the perfect thing to go through. So I learned a lot about Pete and his taste. So, you know, we started a podcast called Retro Game Explorers, and it was just Pete and myself initially, just kind of talking about, you know, old school, like, you know, podcast topics. Then back then, you know, there were definitely less of those kind of podcasts, or if there were, I was too stupid to find them. So, but I thought it was cool to just sit and talk, you know, with a like-minded person about old school retro games, right? And so, you know, we've added some team members since then, but you know, it's so hard to be able to get people together with it. Like we've had the podcast since I think 2017, but we only like 12 episodes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's why when I look at what you've done with like your 200 plus, I just think that's awesome that you were able to consistently go through and do that and have it at the same level of quality, consistency. Like that's something I would strive to do. Like I would love to go back and kind of like revive that podcast, but it's tough, right? Because you know, you're scheduling with multiple people.
You can only do so much too.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's kind of the bad part. And then, you know, I branched off with one of the members there. So this other fellow streamer, good friend, What About Brunch? We have another podcast that's called Masters of the Nostalgiaverse, where even though we met each other through Twitch retro streaming and love of retro games, we actually don't talk about retro games at all. We figure that's what our Retro Game Explorers podcast is for. So we talk about everything not video games related. We talk about like cafeteria food growing up as kids. We talk about like toy stores and like VHS movies at around the time, like movies from the 80s. So,
yeah.
You know, it's all of these subjects like we were talking about earlier, like anything you can bring up with like-minded people that share that similar hobby. It's just a cool way to just remember all these, you know, great memories that give us good feelings and nostalgia, I feel. No,
I love it. Well, I'll definitely put up a link to the retro community and your Twitch stream and your podcast too, so our listeners can enjoy all those things.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if your audience are full of the type of like-minded people that I imagine that they are, hopefully some of them will get a kick out of talking about like watching Karate Kid 2, you know, in the theaters or something like that.
Well, what do you say we move on to the news segment?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Nice. Well, the first one is a canceled but nearly finished Animaniacs game has been found. And this is a Game Boy Advance game that is a point-and-click adventure. And
Oh,
Yeah, it's called Hollywood Hypnotics, and it looks pretty cool. It has great sound and great graphics, and I don't know why it wasn't released, but yeah, it looks,
with that. I guess for Game Boy Advance, if you think about that era and Animaniacs, I mean, that's kind of like a franchise that was being pulled too far
probably
forward.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because by that point, Animaniacs was probably already by the wayside, right? I can't imagine that was like a top franchise that they wanted to do. And I don't know what era within the GBA this game was geared toward, but I can kind of see the reasons there. But it's always strange to see these projects, right, that were killed mid-development or near completion. I don't know how.
It's pretty far. Yeah, it looks like it was almost done. Along? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me when you see projects that go that far and just pull the plug. It makes no sense to me, right? Like, just release it. Even if you release a half-assed unfinished game, it's probably better than, some of like 10% of the other games that are out.
Yeah, just do a short run.
That's an interesting way to do Animaniacs though. Point and click, especially with the multi-character. Because I know you played the other Animaniac games where you usually have control of like the three as a group, and then you kind of like switch between them. Like that kind of gameplay, I thought would have been. I love those games for the Genesis and Super Nintendo. So it would have been cool to have like a GBA version of it that just expanded on that. But even a point and click sounds even cooler. So I got to take a look at that one. I hadn't seen the news on that one. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then the next one is, so some people, probably almost everyone that listens to this podcast knows that Sega almost released the Neptune, which would have been a combined Genesis and 32X. And so someone has gf1neptune.com. And so it is a analog, like the company Analog, the FPGA company, like Neptune. So it's like, it looks like it's FPGA, and I am going to, so I signed up for the newsletter for this, so they tell me when it goes on for sale and stuff like that. I will advise people not to spend money on this yet until, you know what I mean? It could be vaporware, like that other Genesis thing that never came out.
What are your thoughts on that? I saw the news on this, when they were announcing the project a long time ago, and I thought to myself, it's neat, but kind of redundant. You know what I mean?
Which one?
The Neptune itself, right? Like the fact that, and I know right now, like the current FPGA landscape for Sega console, especially the Genesis, right? Because you could get I guess really you can't buy the FPGA Genesis anymore, right? Like the analog, what do they call it? Mega SG.
I have one of those. So those are great.
Yeah, it's an amazing system. The fact that they've decided to not sell anymore, weird. So maybe this fills a niche, but I remember the 32X did work with that Mega SG, right? Like you could plug in a real 32X and then play the 32X games. I think that was so. They never released it.
You need some weird adapters and stuff. But if you have the Mega SG, wait, what is it? If you have the
Mega EverDrive, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, then that's something that could emulate the. Wait, no, am I thinking of that wrong?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now if there was an FPGA. Is there a current FPGA solution for the 32X library? Because I guess really
no, there isn't.
Pointed to it, right? So yeah, I guess maybe it's not redundant. Because when I first saw it, I thought, okay, you're re-releasing a console that never came out, right? So that's interesting. But then the fact that it's an FPGA, like they're using FPGA development cycles to create something just to play, essentially, really just to play the 32X stuff on FPGA. I guess is really what it comes down to. So in my mind, I was like you. I thought there was already a solution to play 32X games, but maybe not. And I have a hard time keeping track. Like I love all the new consoles, the new FPGA consoles. I mean, I still play everything on the original stuff. I have all the FPGA stuff like wrapped up in boxes ready to go once all my consoles decide to die and burn out, right? So somewhere down the line, this is a cool thing, but for me, it's like I don't know. I found it to, like, for me, I'm not going to buy this Neptune thing personally myself. I think it's a very, very awesome thing. I just can't find myself.
I'm definitely going to wait till they show real life demos of it. Yeah,
like you said, you never know. Half these things could be projects that are just never materialize.
Vaporware for sure. Yeah, so we shall see.
I do like the fact that they made it look like what the prototype designs for the Neptune was supposed to be. That's kind of cool.
It's
I like
pretty.
That part.
Yeah, and it has real Genesis ports on the front, which I like.
Yeah, awesome.
But for the interest of time, I'm going to cut this part out. But I have 25 minutes before I have to pick up my kids, so I'm gonna power through a lot of the rest of this.
Sorry about that, man.
No, I like it. No, we might need a part 2. So all right,
I'm totally down with part 2, man.
All right, and next we have from Hackaday, A Feast of 70s Gaming History. And an 8080 arcade board. So this is a story about a found pretty rare 70s board from Blasto Arcade, which is by Gremlin Industries. And it's one of the few PC boards that use the Intel 8080. So if there's any kind of vintage PC board enthusiasts out there, I definitely recommend reading this article.
What games are on that 8080 board?
It just says Blasto, which I looked. It's like this 70s black and white game that I didn't have a chance to look at the video, but it doesn't look too good.
I mean, there couldn't have been too many games, right, on that board. I mean, they must have advanced back beyond that pretty quickly. Eh? Huh, I gotta look at that article then.
You don't do the PC board collecting, do you?
No, I have not started down that path.
Don't.
I know too many crazies in my own Discord that are just spending insane amounts of money and time and effort to get those things. One, first they get a hold on it, and then two, to get them up and running. I'm like, I'm not about that life yet. Maybe somewhere down the line. But.
Yeah, I went down there and I sold them all. It wasn't worth it for me.
Really, the idea is amazing. Like, I know, like, I would love a board here and there. Like, I would love an original Street Fighter World War II board that has all the glitches intact. Like, I would love that. I would love Time Soldiers, but there's a very select few that I would really go towards. So I'm not going to go there yet.
And a very cool article here. This PS1 emulator lives entirely on a Nintendo DS game cart. So yeah, there's this cool YouTuber named, what is her name? F4MI. And she uses a DS game card called the DWTWO. So I don't know if that's DW2 or what, but there is a PS1 emulator software that uses the system on a chip in this DS game cart. And this article says that the games he struggles to call playable, but they work. That alone is cool.
Yeah. I love all of these cool projects as much as the next first, but sometimes I feel like when it's using the SoC to basically run as a computer to do something else, I find that a little cheated. Like, it's not as cool as it could be. It's still cool, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But like, if someone had gotten it to run native, like a PS1 emulator natively running on the DS, I don't think that would be possible, or it'd be running at like quarter frame per second or something like that. But when they just kind of make it run it's kind of like you're making something run in a box, in a magic box, as part of a bigger box. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. I think it's still cool stuff, but it's not as cool as it should be.
Totally. Yeah.
Still awesome.
I 100% agree. Yeah. And then our last almost quick mention here is that Good Old Games GOG now has a client for Linux. So if you are a Linux user, maybe you're on your Steam Deck, now you could use a GOG launcher. So definitely check that out.
What's the translation layer they're using there to get all that to run?
I have no idea.
Right, like speed-wise. I mean, I imagine it's probably perfect, right? Like, especially if you're running a lot of the older GOG games.
They do such a good job, yeah. And a lot of those they already run in DOSBox, so it's probably easy.
If there's some like speed increases they could have, or some type of lower level control, I'm probably sure there's some value there.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
But that also opens the door to have it adopted to like other handheld SoC systems, right? That you could run Linux and then run GOG on top of that. So I think that maybe there's some bigger value there.
And then,
very cool.
Yeah, very cool. And that brings us to Game Club. So the first game in our Game Club this episode is Hi-Octane for the PS1, the Saturn, and the DOS. The DOS. Oh gosh, I sound like a noob. And for DOS. But so anyway, I actually owned this, not pirated. I owned this for MS-DOS back in the day on my 386 SX16, but I did convince my dad to get me a 387 FPU coprocessor. Because
I read your note on that. I didn't even know there was an 387 coprocessor that was available back then.
Oh yeah, and it really made a difference for especially for the SX chips. And I have to say, that chip really sped up my machine. But this is a 1995 game by Bullfrog on the Magic Carpet engine or game code or whatever it was. And this is a first person that you could switch to third person kind of combat racing game with really cool music, and it ran fantastic on my 386. And I don't know the speed difference between a 386 and a PlayStation, but this time I played it on a PlayStation and it worked great. It played great. I enjoy this game. And it works like the way I described it, a combat racer. It's exactly what you like. If you've never seen this game before, just picture what I said in your head and you got it. Some 90s light techno.
So Rob, I have some issue here.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so I have a little bit of issue here. Okay, one, when you mentioned this game in Game Club, I was like, okay, if there's a game that gets mentioned and I don't immediately have some type of memories embedded in my brain, whether it be pictures, some gameplay, whatever, I'm like, okay, I don't think I've ever seen this game. So in my mind, I'm like, I know I've heard the name. The problem is the Hi-Octane name. It kind of like, it's very generic, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I know it's got to be a racer of some sort. So immediately I go, right? I look on my shelves. I don't have it for the Saturn. Okay, so scratch that. I go to my PS1 games. Okay, I don't have it there either. I see it's a long box game. I really don't have it because I can look at my long box games in one glance and no, I don't have Hi-Octane. So I'm like, was this a launch game then? So it must have been very near the PS1 launch. So bottom line, I'm running through my game room. I said, damn it, I don't have this game. But you know what? I got to take a look at it, right? I need to check it out. I need to do my due diligence for Retro Game Club.
Oh, no. So what do you do?
I had to go down the parody path a little. I had to sail the flag. I had to sail the pirate flag. So I grabbed an ISO. I burned it on a disc. I burned it on an actual regular CDR. I popped it in my PS1 ONE, the little white one. I popped it in there because it's already chipped to play, burn games. So I pop it in there. I boot it up on my PVM monitor. It starts to run. And I'm thinking, did I download the PAL version? Because this thing is running really, really slow. And I thought to myself, okay, maybe there's something wrong with this ISO image. Because I got to tell you, man, Rob, when I popped this game in, because, I saw your description and it was like a Wipeout futuristic vehicle company. I'm like, that sounds awesome. That's like, I love, Wipeout was one of my favorite game series of all time. But I start the first level and I've just picked a random track to do like a quick race. The draw distance is like 2 feet in front of your vehicle.
The draw distance is pretty hilarious, yes.
I could not find the track. Like I could not see where to turn. Every turn I took when it was coming so fast because the draw distance was so short. I just ran into walls everywhere I went. I could not for the life of me find the track. It was awful, man. I'm gonna spend some more time on it.
Yeah, start with the first track. Yeah.
So what I'm describing to you is what the game is like. Does it run better on the PC in DOS? You think? Like, is the draw distance better? Or
I mean,
I
had a good time with it on PS1. That's what I played it on.
Really?
See, it's been ages. It's been 30 years since I played it on DOS, so I can't remember there. But what hurts this game for me is pretty much what you said. That it is a bit short for the draw distance, and it's a bit repetitive.
N64 Fog got nothing on this game. I'm telling you.
We'll definitely try the first track because it might be also an issue with that track.
I did like the combat portions of it. Like when I could finally see someone and actually shoot, like there was a good variety of weapons, like the aiming systems. And I will say like the slower, because I guess the vehicles, they turn slower intentionally because there's supposed to be a little bit of more momentum to the turns, which I really like. I feel like the physics was really well, but it was just so choppy and the draw distance was so short. And as a racing game, I couldn't believe that this was in the same era as Wipeout. Because if you look at Wipeout and you compare it to this game directly, you might be like 2 system generations off if you were to show it to someone, not telling them like what systems they're running funny on. But I mean, I'm glad that you were able to pick a game from your childhood that you love, and this is a game I'd never heard of, so I'm glad I was able to check out a new game. Well, also, I'll try to spend some more time with it.
I definitely want to hear you check out a YouTube video of it for PS1 just to make sure there wasn't some weird thing with your disc too.
I will say I did do that, and it looked pretty bad the same way.
Okay. Well, on DOS,
I think this is actually what the game's running on. So
on DOS, this was my first reason to buy a joystick and a sound blaster. So
very nice.
Yeah,
the music is very cool. Yeah, very very cool for that era. That is true. And Bullfrog, I love Bullfrog, right? I never played this I've heard of this Magic Carpet game. I haven't had a chance to play that yet. And I've heard people like really talk about that game and they love it. So I want to try this Magic Carpet game, right? Just see if maybe they didn't run the engine in an optimized way, or they tried to push it past the point of doing too much. Because I read the story where it said like Peter Molyneux, he only spent like 6 to 8 weeks coding this game from scratch. So like took the engine and, built the game from there. So
that's pretty impressive.
Cool history. Yeah. No, it is. It absolutely is. So, but it's a little rough.
And GamePro has a quote that I put in here that crippled by gummy controls and slow repetitive gameplay, flat, unimaginative graphics and sound caused further problems. Stick with Wipeout, Hi-Octane runs out of gas, which, okay, I mean, I think that's a bit harsh. I thought the sound was fine. I mean, the music's good and the sound, and I think the graphics, what is actually drawn, you know what I mean? Like, not talking about draw distance, but the actual graphics are good. And, this actually came out a month before Wipeout, so I don't think one ripped off the other. I think it's just a matter of what technology made possible at the time. Other people had the same idea, and
True.
The same kind of music was popular. What I thought was interesting, though, is this came out for MS-DOS while Wipeout came out for Windows, which I forgot about.
Was Descent available at this point? Not yet, right? Descent was still a few years off, I feel.
Was it? Wait.
Right? Because if this is 95, I think Descent was...
Yeah, Descent was 95.
99%. Okay, so that's the problem. When I see that, I'm like, okay, I really hope this thing I might take a look at this, like how it runs on DOS and how quick it is, because I really feel the frame rate was just chugging and suffering the entire way. And it was really hurting the game, right? Just by just running so choppy. So,
yeah.
I mean, I hate to agree with the talking head, rating scale of GamePro, but I kind of have to go with what they're saying here. This is everything that they're saying. I felt this as I was trying out the game.
That's funny. Well, what about Bionic Commando? You said you have a long history with this game, right?
I didn't even have to boot up the game to remember all of my memory. Bionic Commando is one of my my holy third or my holy 40. So I always talk about like the 40 NES games that I acquired as a kid, right? And Bionic Commando was definitely one of those and most treasured memories. And the reason why I had no issues going out to the store and buying Bionic Commando for the NES is because I had played the arcade version of Bionic Commando. And I know you guys talked about this in season 6, episode 23, a little bit. You guys, I went through the episode and tried to see how badly.
I have no memory.
So I think most of you guys kind of just flew by. I think Zach, Hugh, and yourself were all kind of saying, well, the NES port, you guys were talking about better ports on the NES, like better home ports than the arcade game. So all of you basically just said that it's a much better game. Like there's a lot more meat to it, which is absolutely true. But I loved and maybe is because I went going forward, like I played the arcade and then played the NES game, whereas you guys maybe went the other way around, played the NES game, then went ran into the arcade game, because it is it's like the bare bones framework of the game mechanics, right? And then that's all it was, because it wasn't quite single screen clear, but it was like fairly linear, short levels, a little bit of left, like a lot of left to right, a little bit up and down, and you were just kind of like clearing all the enemies in the stage, and the first couple levels were in a forest or something. But I loved the mechanic of it, right? Like it was the first time you had this Bionic Commando arm to like grapple, like platforms above you to the angle of you and shit. I love the arcade game. So the fact that I bought the NES game thinking that I was going to get that game turns out to be a much better game at the end of the day, right? Like it had nothing to do with the arcade game at all, other than the arm mechanic, right? But it was such an amazing game. Just everything about it was awesome. Like the variety of weapons, like the overhead stages that were like an homage to the original Commando. And then like just the grappling physics and mechanics was just so mind blowing. And the whole issue of no jumping, like it didn't even occur to me to be an issue. Like maybe it would have like bugged me a little bit in the first couple minutes, but once you realize what you can do grappling, and not just grappling, right? Because you were like grappling, swinging, letting go, and then grappling again. Like the chain grappling mechanic was just
that's what I have in my notes. That part makes it almost like a puzzle platformer.
Yes, it was so good. I mean, it was a really hard game. Like I remember, because I didn't really farm a lot in games back when I played on the NES. I don't know what it was, but the idea that you could just continually farm the areas and increase your life bar. Like I died so many times just trying to get through the first couple stages of the game, because I never had more than like one pellet of life or two at most, right? Because I didn't realize that, I could just keep killing these guys for the bullets and building up my life meter. I should have done that a lot. I did eventually beat the game as a kid, though. And it's one of the best NES experiences I remember. it was one of those games that really turns you into an NES fan. You know what I mean? As a kid growing up, such an amazing game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. This is one I had as well, and I own now, but I repurchased it. It's one of those things that
I might have to repurchase CIB for this one. This is one of I don't try to go too much CIB because NES CIB prices are obviously through the roof, but there are select games where I feel like this is one of those ones.
I do have it that way. I do have the box and all.
Yeah, I have the game. I have a manual floating around somewhere, but we're gonna have to go full boat on that one. I feel it's such an instant NES classic game.
Well, Zach's quick notes here are because we are recording this episode a bit earlier, so we didn't get a lot of feedback this week, a little bit, and I'm not sure if I haven't talked to Zach, but I'm not sure if he finished his notes in this. But what he was able to put in was one of his favorites as a kid, and you definitely will not miss jumping after a while. And I totally agree. My notes in here are this. Well, on the jumping part, you need to focus on this game. When you're a kid, you aren't gifted or purchase many games, all at once or throughout the year. So you have one game you probably play for a long time. So you get used to not jumping. So my advice for people is don't play many games with this one. Like focus on this one and you really get used to it. The mechanic is really cool. And Zach is right. You won't miss jumping.
I mean, I really feel like if you just you kill all the enemies in the first area and then you just play around the platforms and see what kind of mobility you have, you really don't figure out some of the more advanced release and shoot out the arm mechanics until like you're forced to later levels. It's really great level design because later on they teach you that you have to do these advanced kind of hook and detach mechanics to get through the stage. But if you were to just figure those out early in the first stage, once you clear the enemies and you have free reign of all the platforms, just swing around and see what's capable. It's amazing how much movement you actually have control over, really advanced stuff. But if you get a hang of that, you breeze through the rest of the game. Once you realize how much control you actually have. So cool.
Absolutely. Yep. And my notes for this playthrough of it, which I didn't get too far, was the graphics and sound actually remind me a lot of Strider on NES, which makes sense because Capcom developed this port.
Mm-hmm. Was it the same female composer group then that did the music for Strider and Bionic Commando? It was I can't remember her name. I'm not going to try to butcher it here either. But there was a core group of female composers that they used in the Capcom sound team, right? And I know that the main composer for Bionic Commando is one of them. I don't know if it was the same for Strider, but
let's see. Online it says Harumi Fujita.
There you go.
Is that it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. There's a superstar right there. So I don't know if she also did Strider.
She did Strider. Yep.
Okay. There's a lot of similar. I feel the music can be a little harsh sometimes in Bionic Commando. I feel Strider's soundtrack is really, really good. It's one of the top ones, and I think Bionic Commando is a step below that. Still amazing, but you can definitely you can hear a lot of the same cues and similarities between the two. Good stuff in both games for sure.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, this is a top 5 Nintendo game for me for sure.
Oh, easy. Yeah, easily.
So what game would you like listeners to play next?
I took a good look at the stuff. Now, honestly, I'll say I have been. It was slanted toward the stuff I've been streaming and buying and playing. So I've been doing a lot of WonderSwan Color, WonderSwan Black and White, and FM Town stuff. And I was looking around. I'm like, okay, it's probably easier for people to try to get their hands to run a copy of a WonderSwan game versus trying to get a stupid FM Town's weird emulator up and running for some janky game that probably is half in Japanese. So took it a little bit easy on the listeners out there. So for you guys out there, if you're a rhythm music game fan, and rhythm music games is one of my favorite genres, and when they decide to turn them into mix them in with other genres like a platformer, or they make it like Parappa or the Rapper or Viv Ribbon or anything like that, I think you end up with a really cool, unique game that a lot of people should try out. So the game is Rhyme Writer Kerorican. I might be saying that wrong.
Yeah, say it again so the listeners could hear it.
Yeah, so the WonderSwan game is called Rhyme Writer Kerorican. Kerorican.
Kerorican.
Yeah. So this little game, it's unique. It's exclusive to the platform, so not available anywhere else. And I always love to point out, like, obviously the exclusives are what you want to show people and highlight for these systems. But this is it's basically a platforming game that is rhythm music mechanic based. So you have a character that's basically auto running through a stage, and you just have to hit buttons in time to the music and the shape of the object that they want to get through. Very, very simple concept, but it's got such a very unique art style to it. It's got crazy music, as you would expect from a Japanese only import, rhythm music platformer game. And it's just a cool little game that I feel that if you guys are fans of any type of rhythm music games, take a look at it. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear if anyone else gets caught by the grip of this game, because I was immediately enthralled by the zaniness and quirkiness of this game. Really, really cool stuff.
Nice. I can't wait to check this out. And the one I'm choosing is another weird one. Gomola Speed for the PC Engine. I just picked it up on eBay.
This game is awesome. This is an amazing choice, Rob.
So yeah, it is a Snake-like game, right?
Yeah, it's basically Snake. Whatever you played Snake on your Nokia phone, just imagine that, but times like 1,000, and then 2 doses of like speed on top of that.
Yeah, it has that PC Engine charm to it.
The music is amazing in this game. Mm-hmm. It's such a driving soundtrack, and like the gameplay is so fun. Like I love this kind of like, kicks capture like the elements around the screen kind of thing. This is more of like, what's the game called where you wrap around objects and trap them and then it gets captured? There may be a term for it that I'm not thinking of.
Oh, I forget. Yeah, I know you're. It kind of is a kicks, right?
Yeah, it's like reverse kicks, right? You're not blocking them out, you're trapping them in. Like your snake-like body, you're wrapping them around enemies, and if you encircle them, then it like such fun gameplay. It's got cool futuristic art style to it. The music is great. Definitely, this is a great choice from Rob here.
Nice. So those games again are Rhyme Rider, Kerorican.
I'm going to say Kerorican is what I'm going with.
Yep. And Gomola Speed. So listeners, if you play those, or Bionic Commando or Hi-Octane, if you play this weird Animaniacs find, if you have any hope for a Neptune FPGA or collect PC boards or emulate PS1 on a DS, please email us. Email at retrogameclub.net. That is email at retrogameclub.net. And because I poorly planned this episode, I only have about 5 minutes until I have a hard cutoff because I have to go pick up my kids. It's that whole time zone thing, right, Bovine?
Absolutely. No, I totally understand. I mean, I don't have kids, so like I'm never like up to the task of those like very, very impending doom items that you need to take care of. So please make sure you go grab the kiddos.
I will. I'll read the one email and then we'll save the socials for next episode. Sure. So Hugh wrote in and he accidentally skipped episode 200, so he's going to get back to that. But he actually just got back from Japan, so hopefully he sends us some photos and maybe, I don't know if he had some cool video game finds or anything. So Hugh, please share some cool stuff with us. But he was completely unaware of Bionic Commando arcade port before the NES game. He didn't know about it till he discovered MAME, and for him, Bionic Commando was a weekend rental, and he remembers how Nintendo Power was hyping it up like crazy, and playing a platformer without a jump button was aggravating at first, but eventually got it, and it's okay.
It was hype. It was definitely hyped by Nintendo, but they didn't get a cool claymation cover, so they didn't think that highly of it, I think.
But it was in every episode, though.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And then as for the arcade games, on a single credit, that was one of our questions of the episode. How far is the furthest you got on a single credit in an arcade game? He says it has to be the first 2 Mortal Kombats, which he used to be able to finish in one shot. Today, he would need at least 1 continue.
Okay. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just getting to know Hugh a little bit from the backlog of episodes. He must be some god gamer. If you're able to finish those Mortal Kombats on the arcade, he must either have run into one set to lower difficulty or he knew the tricks of the trade, because those games, I find them to be impossible to beat. And I'm a fighting game fanatic, so that's props to you, Hughes.
Well, I did tell him that Mortal Kombat, whichever one we haven't done in Game Club yet, is going to be in Game Club soon, because like I'm okay at Street Fighter, I'm above a button masher, but below taking on people that compete. I'm somewhere between there. And I was always horrible at Mortal Kombat because I never gave it a chance because of that damn block button. I just couldn't get it.
Yeah, coming from Street Fighter background to jump into Mortal Kombat, it definitely was something that was very jarring. Like I don't think I ever quite got mastered the art of it, but there was really cool. Like there's some really cool versions of very weird mechanics in Mortal Kombat 2 specifically, and we can talk about them in a later point. But there's really, really interesting stuff that never got ported to the home versions that maybe we can expand upon later. But it's really, really interesting diversion of fighting games, like between Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. So it's hard to find it's hard to find fans of both. I feel like hardcore fans.
I agree. Yeah. But so, Hugh, thank you for writing in. I know there's a few other emails we'll get to next time and a ton of social. So maybe the next episode will be very, very listener-centric. But I hope people play our 2 new games, Gomola Speed and Rhyme Rider Kerorican. I think I said it correctly this time. And remember
better than I would have done.
And write in to say, if you would rather us stick to easy games or get to the weirder like Wonder Swan PC Engine games. And also, Zach reminds me that I had another question of the episode that you could write in about. Tell us about your best console purchases, waiting in line at midnight, or another weird way you got a console. So that is another question to add to our social media or email feedback. And our show notes will have BovineDevine's link, so please join us in the Retro Community Discord, in his streams, check out his podcasts, and all that stuff. So, Bovine, thank you so much for being a guest of the episode.
Oh, thank you very much for the invite, Rob. It was a great time. I love talking retro. I mean, I think you and I could get lost probably hours on an episode here. So, hey, if you want to do a part 2, you can always hit me up. I'll be happy to come back and talk up some retro games there.
I love it.